everyone. Wow. I think we all know that one. Imagine, right? By the unbelievably gifted and talented John Lennon, who I think was just a beacon of wisdom. Just wisdom. So, obviously, that was the song Imagine, and I'm going to let you know the words from Imagine. Imagine there's no heaven, it's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries, it isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. That's the first verse. I want to emphasize the second verse now. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Oh. Poetry and wisdom. So this is Friday night with me. Again, I'm not taping on Friday night, but I'm posting on Friday night. And last week we spoke about gifts. I played simple gifts and the story of the worm and how the worm was true to himself and showed the web of connection and how God's smile let us all see the light of that web and that connectedness, and how eventually the worm can turn into a butterfly through growth and transformation. I think with this, I want to share a story that goes with the song Imagine. And it's short, and what I love about it, it's a parable, and it's one that you actually see in most religions. And I love that because when you have a universal story like that, it usually means like, hey, pay attention, like, hey, we're all feeling the same thing. So here's the story. It's a Chinese proverb, or Vietnamese, or Christian. You can pick your one, but this is the way I'm going to read it. It says here, a very old man knew that he was going to die very soon. Before he died, he wanted to know what heaven and hell were like. So he visited the wise man in his village. Can you please tell me what heaven and hell are like? He asked the wise man. Come with me and I'll show you, the wise man replied. The two men walked down a long path until they came to a large house. The wise man took the old man inside, and there they found a large dining room with an enormous table covered with every kind of food imaginable. Around the table were many people, all thin and hungry, who were holding 12-foot chopsticks. Every time they tried to feed themselves, the food just fell off the chopsticks. The old man said to the wise man, surely this must be hell. Will you now show me heaven? The wise man said, yes, come with me. The two men left the house and walked further down the path until they reached another large house. Again, they found a large dining room and a table just filled with all kinds of food. The people were happy and appeared well fed, but they also held 12-foot chopsticks. How can this be, said the old man. These people have 12-foot chopsticks, and yet they are happy and well fed. The wise man replied, in heaven, the people feed each other. I love that story. I often feel that we forget that we lack for nothing, and that it is imperative that when we see our connectedness, that we feed each other. There may be times when you feed somebody else more, and other times when you need to be fed. It's a symbiotic relationship. The trees feed us, and we feed the trees, right? But as people, we have choices. and we can choose what we do. We can choose what to do with those chopsticks. You might say, like right now, it feels like we're all trying to use those chopsticks to feed ourselves and failing miserably. But we do have the choice. So I thought about this story, which I love, and I thought about John Lennon, and I thought about, gee, imagine, what could it be? And I thought about my personal experience, and I've had great loss, but I've also had great abundance. The two have balanced each other in my life. I don't question God, because you're not going to win that argument. But that's what is presented to me. And then I thought about, okay, what does it mean to be fed? Because we often think about, a basic need, food, water, air, But there are other kinds of nutrition and things that need to be fed. If you think of Maslow's pyramid, definitely we have those things identified for us. So I'm going to address all three that I think are ways to be fed and how we use our chopsticks. So the first is to talk about spirituality and energy. Again, my experience is from a long time ago, but it was profound in how I saw the connectedness of this. Again, when my husband was sick, he was really offline. When he came out of the coma, he had one eye open, like only one. The pupil was huge, and wasn't talking. If he did, it was just a rasp because of the tubes and everything. So the way I felt was, oh my God, I need to give him my energy. Give him my energy, energy, energy. Like I would just sit there and say to God, please give him my energy. Let him have mine. I have enough. Just give him mine. It was like the longest chopstick ever, and I just wanted to feed him my energy. And so did other people, through prayer. And we would have prayer circles around him. And my friend would come in and do energy work with him and move the energy. And I learned how to do that as well. When he came home, I would literally move my hands over his body and feel where it was blocked and try to get that energy out of him and feed him with mine. That's a powerful tool when somebody really needs life energy. We are all energy. And so we can all give it to each other. So that's one way we can use our chopsticks, right? Food, something basic. Let's go to physicality. How can we feed people? And when we think about this pandemic and we see these food banks with mile-long lines, it's a very scary thought. But it is also a profoundly beautiful thing to say, here, let me feed you. And so I remember when... Again, back at that time period, I actually lived at other people's houses for the first month. I lived at my friends' houses who lived closest to the hospital. And when I finally got home, I think I got home about the 2.5-week mark, somewhere in there, for just an overnight. Oh my God. My house my refrigerator was filled with food. People had been contacting me like, oh my God, how can we help? We'll bring you food. And literally brought dishes and dishes and dishes. Now, I didn't really know what was going on because I was so focused on the crises. But I remember at that point, after I'd been home for the first time, I went back to my friend's house to live another 4 weeks. And I just left the door unlocked. I just told people, I'm not even going to leave a key. Just walk through the front door and leave it in the refrigerator. And people literally fed me with food. So when I finally got back after that, first 5 weeks and actually spent some time in my home, oh my God, I was fed, literally fed. I didn't have to cook and I ate good food, and I was so grateful and humbled. Absolutely humbled by those chopsticks. So it was really beautiful. Whew. All right, so the other thing is intellectually. How can we feed each other intellectually? And I think it's profound to be reading. We must read, get away from the TV, get away from noise, get away from things that clog our heads. So I recommend Mark Nepo. He has a book that is 365 days of the year. about awakening. I read that every morning, and it feeds my soul, and it makes me kind of think in a certain way, and then I usually journal about it. The other you might want to consider is Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements, and those are profoundly life-changing because they're based on four basic principles. And when I get confused or feel like I'm not getting fed, right, I go to that intellectual part of my brain and say, okay, what's the truth here? So, chopsticks, feeding each other, what does that look like? Just imagine through John Lennon what that looks like. All of us are able to feed each other and to also accept that feeding, and to know that it's always there and always abundant. So that's this Friday night. That's the story, that's the personal experience, and that's the music. Thank you for joining me. I'm really enjoying this process and learning so much. Thank you for now. Bye.